USA Radio News.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-215-5141. 800-215-5141. That's 800-215-5141.
Washington, D.C. police have arrested a man in Florida who they say was near Senator Rand Paul last week and pushed a police officer after President Trump's acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention. According to the Justice Department, the man from Orlando, Florida, was arraigned in D.C. Superior Court on one count of assault of a law enforcement officer. He was released on his own recognizance. Carrie Kupchak with the Justice Department says the investigations will continue.
The Department of Justice is assisting in those investigations, and we are investigating coordinated criminal activity related to riots, destruction of federal property, assault of federal law enforcement officers. We obviously don't prosecute ideology or groups, but we certainly prosecute and certainly investigate criminal activity. And Martha, part of this is following the money. So what does that mean? That means examining the financial transactions related to this coordinated criminal activity. For instance, some of the materials that have been used in these riots, how were they purchased? Where is this money coming from? Who is behind that? And working our way up. And the Department of Justice is aggressively pursuing all of those avenues with respect to these investigations.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg says his company is going to crack down on misinformation because of concerns about people getting confused in the months leading up to the November 3rd presidential election. For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
One woman, one mission, shining light on corruption. This is UncoverDC with your host, investigative reporter, Tracy Beanz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday edition of AM, WSMN 95.3 FM. Thank you to all you radio listeners.
This is UncoverDC with Tracy Beanz. You can hear us on Periscope, on the radio, up there in New Hampshire. Great people up there. You can hear us over on Facebook, on Twitter. Hello to my Twitter friends, my YouTube friends out there. On CloudHub. Everybody go get a CloudHub account, cloudhub.com, or you could do getcloudhub.com/beans. And on rightamericamedia.com. So we are everywhere. Thank you guys for being here with me today. So much to talk about. Producer Juan, you're here today.
I am.
Yay.
How you doing?
It's Producer Juan. I hope my sound is okay. There was a little bit of fuzziness on Tuesday that bothered me.
A little bit?
Yeah. So let me know how I sound out there, guys. So much to talk about today, and it's all kind of election and PSYOP related. I don't know how many of you folks out there are well versed in social media, but I'm going to go through some things that are going on that should be something you pay attention to as you traverse your way across these platforms that like to completely mess with everything. It's getting quite pathetic, actually. So we're going to start off talking about influence operations. Sounds like a very nefarious topic, but it's important. So I've seen this like 1,000 times, and it happens all the time. You have several different ways to sway a population, how they think about events, how they think about what they think. Targeting folks that are out there trying to do good work because they're very effective, all kinds of stuff. So what we're seeing on social media now, and especially I noticed this on Twitter, I did a little bit on the podcast yesterday about this, is that I had a bunch of people send me notes, little DMs, and say, hey, look at this. This is really weird. And it would be a DM from somebody that they got basically saying, I'm so tired of this violence. Me and my boys are going to go out and, counter these guys. We're going to bring our weapons. What should we do? Please respond. And there's like a zillion different things that could be. And this is not just one time. This is several times I got this from folks who were like, what is this going on here? Smart people out there. You guys are way smarter than people give you credit for. So the first thing it could be is somebody who's honestly feeling that way. I mean, it would be silly and ignorant to think that nobody in the country was very frustrated right now with what they're seeing go on in American cities. Could be some not innocent, but some person who really thinks that way contacting you. It could be somebody who is trying to incite violence, who's working for an evil entity. I sound like I'm like a psychic or something. It could be somebody who's on. It could be a bot. It could be somebody who is planning on going out and doing something like this themselves and is using Twitter to be able to craft a narrative afterwards, or any other social media platform. You've seen it. They've used things like that to censor before. Somebody goes out and does something really horrible, and then they go back to their social media and they've posted a manifesto or some kind of post, and then they censor everybody because, we can't have that wrong think because this bad person did these things. But a lot of the times those things are even shady too. So they want nothing more than for Trump supporters, in quotes, to go out and commit some kind of act of violence because they've been trying desperately. And if Juan, you can get clip number 3 ready. They've been trying desperately to blame, I'm just going to use their terminology, the right, on what they're doing. Saying that, if we got to this the other day on the show, how President Trump was saying, if we go out and protest, it's a horrible thing. We're not allowed to do it. They're inciting things. But meanwhile, we have riots and stuff going on here, and they're not taking any brunt of the responsibility whatsoever. They're just able to go out and do whatever the heck they want, and it's not a problem. So let's play clip 3 of Joe Biden yesterday blaming the gentleman who got shot and killed, Aaron Danielson, for his own murder. Go ahead.
Separate entity. They're literally
or not. What happened, Juan?
I'm sorry. Seems like I have a double computer here. Let me fix that. And
all right, I can keep talking because I can't shut my mouth anyway.
Okay.
No worries. So Biden very gently blames him, says he was inciting this violence. Says he was inciting it on himself by just walking around there and being there from the Patriot Prayer Group. And the way it's framed online makes me really sick. ABC News has a headline. It says, Trump friends mourn right-wing activist killed in Portland. The byline is a supporter of a right-wing group who was shot dead on a Portland, Oregon street was mourned by both friends and President Donald Trump as a victim of mob violence. Every single thing you read anywhere is all propagandized and very gently massaged to get you to think a certain way. It's getting ridiculous at this point. I tweeted a thread last night about how the media, if you even can call them that anymore, these people are operatives, straight up, can even, how they've portrayed Antifa and Black Lives Matter violence versus peaceful protests by what they would consider the right, which at this point I think has expanded to become everybody who's not a radical extremist Democrat, because there's no other direction to go in. So influence operations are being used online to get this stuff to promulgate. They want nothing more than to be able to blame somebody on the right for some sort of violence. And it happens in a number of other ways other than that. I'm sure a lot of you out there listening have seen your friends sharing information, or you follow certain people with large followings you've come to know over several years who have been doing good work. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these people start getting attacked. Their credibility starts being brought into question. People tweet vague, ridiculous sort of threats underneath, accusing them of doing things wrong. What?
No, I'm sorry. I'm still getting that feedback. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Can people out there hear me okay, or am I like feedbacking to the world?
No, you're perfect.
Okay. And you start to see underneath people or agents, or it's not a conspiracy theory. This happens. It's happened to me several times, so I know. They come in and they start to sow these seeds of doubt about the character or integrity or whatever of the person that's doing the good work. And then mob mentality takes over, and a lot of other people start chiming in that are actually real, and they start saying, well, yeah, that always kind of got me too. And you see it. And I see this happening all the time, and it infuriates me, because I use this example. Like, you'll see an account pop up on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, whatever social platform you're on. They'll be anonymous. They'll be brand new. They'll claim to have some secret information that nobody's ever seen before, ever. And they will promise they're going to release it. Now, a lot of the times they don't even ever release it. They release like nonsense stuff that can be taken in any way that's used to just keep people's attention. They spring up, they get thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. And then after a couple weeks, when they've done their thing, they start to mount an attack on legitimate folks. And the craziest thing happens, and I see it all the time. The public at large starts to believe that anonymous brand new person over the account that has been around forever, that has their face there and their name and is doing work that everybody can tangibly see. Influence operations to fracture, to cause discord, all kinds of stuff. It happens on social media all the time. There are bots that go around. There are real people manning accounts that go around. As a matter of fact, McChrystal has a originally DARPA-funded social media attack wagon going to go after influencers who were posting about President Trump and sharing information. Facebook is doing this constantly as well. Like, for example, we posted an article at UncoverDC.com the other day about the CDC announcing that 6% of the COVID deaths were attributable to COVID alone. 94% of those deaths were COVID plus 2.6 comorbidities. In other words, were 94% of the people that died had two conditions or more that contributed to their death along with COVID. Now, you can argue and this is what we did in our column, because I saw a lot of articles written that basically then just discounted COVID altogether, which I think is irresponsible, because there are a lot of people who have passed away from COVID. Legitimately, I know some. So a lot of elderly people, a lot of Americans walking around out there have two comorbidities, obesity, diabetes too. There you go. How many obese Americans are there who also have diabetes? That's two comorbidities. Now, you could argue 2.6 means you should have three. Obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Very common illnesses in the United States of America. So our article took data straight from the CDC, right? And we wrote a news piece. Sharon Black wrote a news piece only on that. And it was censored as fake news on Facebook, because they were using misinformation about President Trump claiming whatever, and the fact check that they placed on the article actually agreed with what we wrote. But we can't appeal to anybody. We can't appeal to anyone to get that taken down. It's just we're stuck. We're completely stuck, and it's nonsense. So Facebook does it too. So once that starts happening, then anybody who's sharing our stuff in groups is like, oh, we can't share this stuff. They post misinformation. It's nonsense. We do not post misinformation at UncoverDC. Of all the places in the world you can go to, I can guarantee you that UncoverDC.com does not post misinformation or disinformation. Then you also see these articles popping up. They're really hard to tell whether or not they're real articles or just complete conspiracy theory, because they pepper in 3 or 4 details that are legitimate, and then they craft a narrative around those 3 or 4 details that lead you to distrust the entire article. So your entire existence online is basically wading through a sea of influence operations, targeted attacks, and hopefully being able to somewhere find real information that you can use and rely on. It is not a fun world out there for social media users at all. And you might not even realize it. And it's really hard to tell. You know, there's a lot of easy things. If there's a new account that popped up in July, which a lot of these that were inciting violence were, you can tell, you know, there's a lot of people who just are getting on socials now. So you can't just discount somebody because they've got a new profile. Nor can you just discount somebody because they don't have a lot of followers. I always dislike when somebody out there is commenting under a thread and somebody reads it that doesn't like what they said and says, oh, you only have 15 followers. Some people just create a social media account to look at things and don't really want to comment, nor do they want a bunch of followers. That doesn't mean that their opinion is any less valid. And it's not an automatic disqualifier, you know. And I never automatically disqualify anybody who has less than, 5, 10, 15 followers. It's just silly because you never know. But, if they have all numbers next to their name, if they don't have any profile picture, you can also do, like there's been analysis done. There was a big campaign that went on a year and a half ago or so where it was like 1038. I forget what the name of it is off the top of my head now. I wrote a whole piece. I did all kinds of analysis on this where they accused random accounts that were actually legitimate accounts of being part of some sort of influence campaign. And they took these accounts and Twitter just block banned everybody. And they were actual legitimate accounts. So I reached out to a whole bunch of the accounts that were not banned. And I asked them if I would be able to publicly share their account information. I didn't want to put them out there further if they already had enough attention on them. And I did an analysis to see what they were saying in regards to the election being election fraud in the 2018 midterms. And what I found was amazing. All of the things that this report about this supposed influence operation to kind of question the integrity of the vote were false. Like these people hadn't tweeted these things. They hadn't had the frequency of tweets that were alleged. So there is even that kind of misinformation going on. All kinds of stuff surrounding the election. And producer Juan has told me now that we have the clip of Joe Biden ready to go. So let's listen to clip 3 where Biden very gently blames Aaron Danielson for his own death.
Ahead of your trip to Kenosha, Wisconsin tomorrow, last week your running mate, Senator Harris, said that the officer who shot Jacob Blake, based on what she has seen, should be charged. Do you agree with her, and do you also believe the same for the officers who were involved in the death of Breonna Taylor?
I think we should let the judicial system work its way. I do think there's a minimum need to be charged, the officers, and as well as Breonna Taylor. And I might add, by the way, I think what happened in Portland, where one of the Trump guys riding along in vans inciting response is shooting rubber bullets, I guess, or paintballs. Apparently there was someone shot by someone in the crowd with a bullet killed. I think that person should meet the legal requirements of whatever that calls for. We should be investigated, and it should follow through on what needs to be done. Let the judicial system work. Let's make sure justice is done.
I don't even know what the beginning of that clip was. He conflated like 4 different issues in a half a sentence. What does Breonna Taylor have to do with anything that he was asked? He just threw that name out there because he knows that it is an activist hot flash point. Because it's all justice for Breonna Taylor. Meanwhile, Brandon Tatum released an internal document he received from the police department doing that investigation into Breonna Taylor, where she was actually used as per this investigation and from recorded telephone calls from inside of the jail as a human shield by the guy that opened up shooting at the cops when they came in. So he shot first. The suspect, they were serving a search warrant, and the suspect in the house shot first. So Breonna Taylor, who they have portrayed as somebody who was just randomly gunned down by police in her home. That's a whole different story for another day. Then he brings up Kyle Rittenhouse, who I'm saying is, I hope I have that right. I don't have it in front. I keep on screwing that up, and I don't know why. It's all over the place. They're blaming Kyle. I'll call him Kyle because he's a hero, and I'm going to get censored for that. But they're blaming him for defending himself. Facebook won't even let you post the fundraiser. They're saying you're inciting violence or glorifying violence if you talk about Kyle Rittenhouse at all on Facebook. He hasn't even been convicted yet. Whatever happened to that standard of justice in the country? Rittenhouse, yes. That's ridiculous. Lynn Wood, his attorney, who has done successful lawsuits against socials, was banned on Twitter for talking about the case and sharing the defense fund. That they said that was a mistake, and they reinstated him. And then, not only that, but like after we talk about how ridiculous Biden is with his nonsense, he can't get a sentence out right. We've got a couple more Biden things. We're going to go to clip one in a second one. But I was looking this morning. He was asked for questions, like if he wanted to, he was going to take questions, and he said, all right, I guess my staff is going to call on people now for questions. And everyone was like, why does his staff have to call on people for questions? Why can't he just answer these questions himself? And I said, it's because they need the order right. He's got his answer scripted in front of him on paper. And if they don't have the order correct, he won't know what to read to answer the questions he already knows because they've given them to him beforehand. So they're going to call on the reporters in the order of his sheet. And he can't be counted on to do it, so they have to do it for him. These reporters go along with this. They're operatives. All of these reporters are operatives at this point. They are no longer journalists. I think that everybody knows that, but I'm just saying. It's been so long since we've had journalism. So long. These are literally operatives. Like, the worst part of all of this is you're going to hear something really amazing in a second. I'm going to play for you. You can't see it, so you have to understand how teleprompters work. When you are reading from a teleprompter and you're doing script, they tell you, like, they'll say top line story or top line question or top line topic or whatever. And they will, like, give you a heading that titles that section. So you're not supposed to necessarily answer, read that. It's just there to tell you, here's your top line points. Here's your top line. That's what it's for. You're not supposed to read that out loud. And if you're any seasoned, person, or even if you're not, if you're a politician for 70 years, you're definitely seasoned to teleprompters. Let's listen on clip one to what Biden does when he's reading the teleprompter in this interview. That he should be able to handle a 5-minute hit on TV. He should be able to handle it fine.
What's the president doing? Look, Venezuela's top-line message is President Trump's policy is an abject failure.
Play that again and yeah.
What's the president doing? Look, Venezuela's top-line message is President Trump's policy is an abject failure.
He is hopelessly lost. Hopelessly lost. It's really crazy. I don't know how they're going to manage this one. I really don't. One, how are they going to manage any of this with him?
They're going to keep him in the basement. They're going to have to. I mean, did you see have you seen pictures of him in Pittsburgh the other day where they present him in front of flags and everything, and it's given the feeling that he is in front of a lot of people. And actually, when someone leaked a picture of it, it was like 3 people in circles, and there was no questions. He just read the teleprompter, and then as soon as someone asked the question, he booked out of there.
yes, he couldn't handle questions. There was nobody outside because he decided he had to start coming out and doing stuff, right? Like, the polling is so bad that he reversed course immediately. And he's like, oh my gosh, we got to get out of here. We got to get out. We got to do stuff. Somebody controlling his puppet strings had him and said, okay, get out there, Joe. Get on out there. It's time, right? But he has there's no enthusiasm for the man at all. Like, he's going to Kenosha today. Let's just see what happens in Kenosha. And then President Trump was in Wilmington, North Carolina yesterday. And there were like thousands of people lining the streets. You can't fake that. It's enthusiasm and you cannot fake it. So I'm really interested to see how they manage this. And I don't know how I just don't know how they'll do it. I really don't. I don't know how they'll do it. I like, the debate is going to be on the 29th. Apparently it's Chris Wallace who's going to be hosting. Is Chris Wallace going to give the debate questions to Donna Brazile, who will give them to Joe Biden? Oh, goodness. So we've got that. And then let's talk a little bit, because we're not going to do a break today, I've learned. We'll talk a little bit about Nancy Pelosi and her spot outing yesterday. So Nancy Pelosi got her hair done on Monday. And what happened is Fox broke the story that a salon, so how she does her salon is she owns the salon. She's a hairstylist too. She rents out her chairs to other people. They have their own clientele and whatever. Her salon has been shut down since the pandemic. They're one of the last places to be able to open. They haven't been able to open. She's lost her business. It is basically dead in the water. She gets a text message from one of her stylists saying, Pelosi just booked an appointment. I'm coming in. She loses her mind because she has gone broke, can't support her family. But Nancy Pelosi, the one who has mandated these things, is going to go into her salon and get her hair cut when she's not allowed to be one-on-one cutting anyone's hair. Hence the tyranny we've been experiencing. So Nancy Pelosi goes in, the woman happens to have a security camera, looks at it, and realizes that Pelosi is not wearing a mask. This breaks. It's silent for 24 hours as the collective world goes insane over the hypocrisy here. And the stylist was very bold and went on the record and gave her name, which I think is brave in this day and age for her. So yesterday, all of a sudden, Pelosi comes out and says that she was set up, that the whole thing was a setup, that she didn't want to take responsibility for anything that she did. We're going to listen to clip 5 right now if we have it ready. Are you ready with it, or do you need me to intro it a little bit? Okay.
Nancy
So
Pelosi, tell
Tucker,
you what really happened.
Oh,
I've been there over the years.
Do you want it?
Juan, you have to answer me when I talk.
I only have 2 hands. There's about 3 buttons to be able to talk to you. My apologies about that.
No, that's okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm just I'm in my basement today. So we're gonna listen to Tucker Carlson with Nancy Pelosi. It's 5. Here we go.
Watch Nancy Pelosi tell you what really happened.
I've been there over the years. I've been there many times. I appreciate the question, and let me just say this: I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that when they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Nancy Pelosi wants to know she appreciates the question and that she takes responsibility for being set up and trusting someone who lied to her. In other words, she takes no responsibility at all. None. It's the salon's fault. Nancy Pelosi is the victim here. Well, if you live in Nancy Pelosi's neighborhood or a neighborhood like it, you will recognize this behavior immediately. Yet another self-centered rich lady blaming the help for her mistakes. Where's my bracelet, Carmela? You stole it. You can just hear Nancy Pelosi screaming that at her housekeeper as the bracelet she can't find dangles from her wrist. It's all a metaphor for how liberals see our country. This is how they explain their mismanagement. They attack the people below them. Michelle Obama scolds America for racism and inequality from her $12 million estate on Martha's Vineyard. Joe Biden blames America's problems on beat cops, working-class guys who make $50 grand a year to risk their lives protecting us from criminals. The cops did it, Biden yelps. It's their fault. At the same time, you'll notice that Biden always gives a pass to the people who caused the problems we hire cops to clean up. The real problems, like unemployment and drug addiction and disintegrating families. Biden never mentions the people who caused those problems: his friends at Google, his donors in private equity, his allies in the Chinese government. Biden never blames them. Biden never takes on the powerful. No one on the left ever does. They think Jeff Bezos is a hero because he's rich. They sniff his throne like beagles. Instead, their target is always the dying American middle class.
There you go. And it's absolutely true. Tucker was on fire yesterday. On absolute fire. And, you know, she didn't take responsibility for anything. It's so gross. As a matter of fact, it's so bad that my 14-year-old Helga, which would be clip 4 in a second, knows what's going on. We were talking about it yesterday, and she's like, oh my gosh, we need to record this real quick because it was hysterical. So let's play clip 4. This is little Helga.
Guys say to Nancy Pelosi before they framed her.
They said, come to this salon, get your your hair done, and don't wear a mask, but, you know, tell the guy next to you to wear a mask. Come in, get your hair done in this closed shop that is not allowed to open. And then when you're caught and everybody's attacking you online, just say you were framed and everybody will believe it.
She knows. She's 14. It's so gross. And we're going to listen to another Tucker clip, number 6, because it's just that good. Number 6.
You know what? I want Helga to have her own show.
Me too. She deserves one.
Yes, here comes the clip.
They think Jeff Bezos is a hero because he's rich. They sniff his throne like beagles. Instead, their target is always the dying American middle class, which they punish and degrade and humiliate at every turn. This is a revolution, have no doubt, staged for the benefit and amusement of our ruling class, maybe the first of its kind in history. Nancy Pelosi, of course, is one of the leaders of that revolution. She doesn't have to explain why she does things. Today, she announced she would not explain. She did not tell us exactly how she was trapped by the hair salon. Her assistant set up her appointment by text message. You can see the text for yourself on the Fox News website right now. And what about her all-important COVID protection mask? Did the hairstylist tear that off Nancy Pelosi's face in some kind of vicious assault? Pelosi didn't say. Instead, she used a phrase familiar to anyone who's been around politics for a while. It was a setup, she claimed. Oh, a setup. Sounds like something they would have said in the mafia-controlled Baltimore of Pelosi's youth, a city her father ran. And they probably did say that. Democrats have used that phrase for a long time. They still do. A setup. That's Hillary Clinton's explanation for how she lost the 2016 election. And most famously, of course, that's what Pelosi's old friend, D.C. Mayor Marion Barry, said when the feds busted him for smoking crack with his girlfriend. Watch.
We can stop it here because I think there's a bad word. We don't want any bad words.
From Barry?
No, from Tucker.
Oh, bad word from Tucker?
Tucker used the B word.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, the part that has not been reported, it's when she says that the salon made me buy 21 different flavors of ice cream.
Well, I know. You know what? I had a reporter on the ground there just to figure out if that were true. Maybe one day we'll have reporters on the ground, but not yet.
We will.
We will. We'll have some reporters on the ground. But it's seriously, like, it couldn't get better. Now we're going to do 7 because this is something I knew would happen, and it's sick. Let's listen to clip 7 real quick.
the most powerful woman in America come into your salon in violation of the rules she supports, get caught, and then blame you for it?
To be honest, it was more hurtful. She's been coming in for quite a while, and just to see her come in, and especially not wearing the mask, that's what really got to me. But
Yes.
you know, this isn't even political. I mean, she's been coming in there. It's the fact that she actually came in and didn't have a mask on. And I just thought about, you know, my staff and people not being able to work and make money and provide for their families. And if she's in there comfortably without a mask and feeling safe, then why are we shut down? Why am I not able to have clients come in? So it's been hard.
You're not making a political point. You're making a human point rooted in common sense. And what do you think? I don't know what the answer is. What do you think the answer is? Why can't, if Nancy Pelosi feels comfortable using your salon, why can't civilians use it?
Exactly. And I'll be honest, in our area in San Francisco, I mean, we're obviously the last county or city to not open. We've been trying to figure that out. We've been asking ourselves these questions for 6 months, I mean, for the past actually 4 months, of why we are not reopened. And that's kind of a good question. We, again, don't know.
Huh. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay in the city, do you think, in San Francisco?
I don't think so. The hard part of all this is that I have been in that community for 12 years. And since this happened, I have received nothing but hate, text messages, death threats. They're going to burn my hair salon down. My Yelp page is just unbelievable with bad reviews. It's just, it's sad that my community is pulling this when they're saying that I threw her under the bus when I didn't. So that's hurtful, but I think I'm pretty much done there. So, yeah.
So the letter that was the letter that comes out from Speaker Pelosi's daughter after her Tucker Carlson appearance, where she is saying she's being threatened, which I totally believe because these people are crazy. Thankfully, she's leaving there. I would get the heck out of Dodge if I were her. I wouldn't stick around. But in the letter, it says this. It gives a lot of, information about how she had to approve for, Speaker Pelosi to be there, blah, 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 blah. But then it says this at the end. This office, meaning Christine Pelosi's office, this is the same Christine Pelosi who said on Twitter, by the way, some of our friends might get caught up in this Epstein thing. Anyway, this office is in possession of photographs, videos, and witness information. How did you get those? That Mrs. Kios, contrary to her prior statements to the press, has actually been operating her business during the stay-at-home orders and similar executive orders limiting in-store operations since as far back as April 2020. She's seen on photographs and videos styling various clients' hair, ignoring social distancing guidelines, and not wearing protective equipment as recently as a few days prior to Speaker Pelosi's arrival at East Salon on August 31st, 2020. What's more, she's also been actively encouraging and almost forcing stylists who operate at the salon to violate such orders for her financial benefit in the form of receiving lease payments. So what they're saying is that this stylist owner is the owner of the salon is forcing her contractors to work. Yeah, I'm sure that in this day and age and this time, they're forcing anybody to go into work, if it's even true. And it's kind of terrifying to me how, if they're not the owners or don't have, how did they get their hands on her own video footage? I don't know. Anyway, the fact that they say now in the letter, the fact that Ms. Kios is now objecting to Speaker Pelosi's presence at East Salon, and from a simple surface level review of her political leanings, it appears that she's furthering a setup of Speaker Pelosi for her own vain aspirations. Mr. DiNardo's name has now been dragged through the mud for simply following her recommendation. He wishes to move forward with his efforts to earn an income and asks that his privacy be respected during this time. For goodness sakes. For goodness sakes. I mean, the hypocrisy. they're actually trying. I don't. How many days has it been now that I've been sitting here talking to you guys just speechless? Like, it just gets worse every day. I yearn for the days when Maxine Waters saying to confront people at gasoline stations was a problem. We were so much better off. We're going to shift over to voting now. We've got a lot of stuff going on with this election, and there's like things pouring in from everybody. One of the biggest problems that we have, I think, moving into 2020 elections is that literally nobody trusts the integrity of the election. The Democrats don't trust it. Democrat citizens don't. The Republican citizens don't trust it. The independents don't trust it. I don't even think people that don't vote trust it. Nobody trusts the integrity of the election. That is a massive problem. It's a massive problem no matter where you sit on the spectrum. And, you know, I've been preaching to the choir, I think, that the only way to feel comfortable is to go out and vote in person en masse, like everybody. There's going to be a ridiculous number of first-time voters that have never voted before that are going to go out to the polls on November 3rd. And the people that are looking to fix an election are not going to have them in their tally, and they're not going to have enough leftover ballots to be able to engineer the difference. In other words, if there are a flood of people at polling locations on election day, those votes will come in, and they're not going to be able to create enough extra votes of people who didn't vote because so many people have voted in person. So I've been saying that that's one way we can counter it. But there's a lot of problems in that a lot of these precincts have closed, and a lot of people in their local area don't know where to go to vote. They're like in New Jersey, I think there's certain precincts that are open, and they're like very much consolidated into separate areas, like where they normally wouldn't be. And nobody really knows what's going on in each state. Not only that, some states are like mandating mail-in ballots, which is just a nightmare. We're going to go to 2 in a minute, Juan, which I'm sure you guessed. But, you know, it's a problem because anybody pushing back at this point saying that mass mail-in balloting is safe and effective has issues. Just that you cannot really be serious and say that. You can't. And there was a very fiery exchange with AG Barr last night with Wolf Blitzer, where I was really, really happy to see this exchange go on, because I think Barr is finished with taking the nonsense. So let's roll clip 2.
Well, I don't know what the law in the particular state says, and when that vote becomes final.
Is there any state that says you can vote twice?
Well, there's some, maybe that you can change your vote up to a particular time. I don't know what the law is, so I'm not going to offer.
He was saying test the system.
If you know what he's saying, why are you asking me what he's saying?
He doesn't believe in the mail-in voting. You're the Attorney General of the United States.
Why does you? Yeah.
He said if you expand mail-in voting, this is the president.
This is,
it's reckless.
Well, this is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then, there have been
until
a lot
this
of investigations that haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows that.
But there are individual cases. But as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since.
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots that's being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now what we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants. Do you think that's a way to run a vote?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that so far we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
so far we haven't tried it.
Well,
and the point is,
but a lot of us. There are several states that only have mail-in voting, including a Republican
well,
state
this
like
is
Utah.
playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which, as a matter of logic, is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous. And the people are playing with fire.
Well, I will point out there are 5 states that only have mail-in voting,
I don't want to hear
including
the rest
Utah
of
and
him.
Colorado and Washington.
Wolf Blitzer is an operative. Do you understand? How do you sit there and argue? Like, for people who always stand on their high horse and we want an honest election, we don't want to disenfranchise voters. We want everybody to have a fair shot. We want them to be able to vote and for their vote to count. These people are advocating for a free-for-all of fraud in the election, and they don't care because they know it's the only way that they would have any shot to win. They cannot win this election. Everybody knows it. They will not win it. Not the way things are going right now. There's no way. Joe Biden is a shell of a human being right now. It is evil what they're doing to him, but I guess deserved given his history. I would never be able, as a family member of Joe Biden, to watch this man go through this. He doesn't know where he is. He has no idea where he is. I'm sorry. He just doesn't. And here's Wolf Blitzer arguing with the Attorney General of the United States, who wants to make sure that there are fair elections. I just want to say, there's a lot of I mean, there's never been any reports of fraud. This is just, what? Seriously? Oh, goodness. We're going to try and take some calls for the end of the show today. The number, if you want to call in and talk to me, is 603-816-1590. That's 603-816-1590. You're listening to WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Thank you, guys. If you're in your car, this is Tracy Beanz, and this is the show Uncover DC with Tracy Beanz. And I'm joined by my producer at large, Mr. Juan.
One of a kind. One in a million.
Yes, one of a kind who has to push 3 buttons to talk to me, which now I know.
So, but you know, it's just amazing. They're already setting up, the media is setting up the after November 3rd election narrative, which is going to be, we can't not give the election to, we cannot call President Trump the winner of the election. We have to wait for all those mail-in ballots, which is just going to give them time to try to, mass print all the ones that they need.
You're exactly right. And as a matter of fact, that's something that we've, there was an article that came out in Axios. The Democrats are warning of an apparent Trump election day blowout where, 538 is involved in all this too, where they're saying, like, it'll look like he won every state in the union on election night, but once we get a few weeks to retally everything the way we need it to, he'll have lost by 334 to 204 in electoral college votes. Give me a break. Bill Barr is really sincerely worried about all-out civil war at this point. We are already in the midst of an insurgency and destabilization campaign in this country. Already. And, now all of a sudden that some politicians were attacked in D.C., we want to hear from them starting to look at where the money and the funding for all this is coming from. Where have you been for the past 5 years where Antifa has been ramping this stuff up? They said Wisconsin was going to burn if Bernie Sanders didn't get the win the primary. They just found another excuse to do it. It's ridiculous. I really, we're at such a precipice here. The only thing that's going to work, in my opinion, is ridiculous amounts of people going to the polls on election day and casting their ballot at the polls. And they can steal it that way too. They do it all the time. There's vote shaving. There's all kinds of things they can do. The actual companies that run these machines or, tally these things are not even located in the United States. Something many people don't know, but a lot of people who have been around for a long time do. And there's a lot of evidence out there of manipulation in the vote. And we're gonna have a Florida issue, a hanging Chad issue again. But I can tell you now, attorneys from all over the country on all sides of the aisle are going to be, in the elections they steal, in the areas they steal, the Democrats won't contest a thing. They won't contest a thing. But the Republican attorneys are going to be in there looking at this stuff. And a lot of people are saying they're doing early voting. That worries me too, because then they know far in advance what they're up by, what they're down by, and what they need to do to get around it. I worry about early voting because they'll have those results. They'll know, okay, we've already got Trump at 20 and Biden at 10. We're going to need to manufacture at least 11 to make up the slide. And then by the time we get to election day, whoever's left over, it just bothers me.
It is very scary. There's no angle of this election that you can say, oh, that's a bright spot.
No. I don't know how anybody can, and that's a problem. When you don't trust your elections, people, to be honest, and I'm just going to say it because I've been doing this for so long, we shouldn't have been trusting our elections for the past 30 years, okay? It's just now that people are really awake and paying attention to it. There needs to be, even the AG of the United States just on live television questioned the integrity of the voter rolls. He did. We need really election reform in this country. It is sorely needed. Sorely. People are all shy to call me Juan.
I know. Well,
it's weird.
I know. It's funny. So 603-816-1590. Please give us a call. You get to talk to Tracy. Any subject you want. Me. Oh, no. Everybody loves you. So, but hey, so in the meantime, so this morning I was in Massachusetts doing recording a standout. Standout is where people go out there and wave flags and all that kind of stuff. And it was in the hometown of the governor, who is a Republican in name only. So in the other side was people for BLM. Very interesting. So I started doing a little bit of analysis, and I'm looking at all those people, right? And I'm looking at all the people on the Trump side, and we have a very diverse group of people. In the other hand, the other side, the BLM side, was all white people, young people. Like when I say young, I'm saying 10 to 12. At least 33% of them were 10 to 12 years
old.
Yes.
What?
Yes. So, they have their homemade posters and just saying things that I wouldn't let my 17-year-old kid say.
Wow.
So, I think we got a call. Let me get him.
Somebody did the right thing and picked up the phone. It's not often that I take a call.
I know, and you know what they did? They hung up as soon as I was talking to them. So.
Goodness me, oh my. Scaredy cats. All right, well, we don't have time for them anymore.
Yeah.
There's only 4 minutes left, so.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, it was very interesting. So we had Hispanics, we have African Americans on our side, but over there, oh, here he comes. He's going to call again. 1 second.
So funny. This is great. I love it. Live radio, people. Live radio. Live and in your living room. So they're doing all this BLM stuff in school. That's probably why. You've got these kids out on their school trip for Black Lives Matter, which is terrifying in and of itself. Scary. There's a walkaway march coming in October in DC, everyone. October 2nd through the 4th. It is in DC, and I will be there. Nice big event. Everybody's been clamoring for something to do to show their support. You guys should make a run out there. If you go to Walkaway Campaign on the web, you'll be able to see it. And then the week after that, I'm in Florida, in Miami for Trump Doral for AmpFest 2020.
Well, we do have a caller for you. She has a question for you.
All right,
Go
let's
ahead,
do
caller.
it. Hello.
Hi, Tracy. This is Kelly. I'm actually right down the street from you in Lake Murray, South Carolina.
Well, hello.
And we're so thankful that you're here in our great state. My question is, Barr had said that we would hear from Durham by Labor Day, and Labor Day is Monday. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were if we did not hear from Durham.
I wouldn't worry about it if you don't hear anything by Labor Day, because I was expecting something last week and nothing came. It doesn't mean that nothing's happening. It just probably means that the Brennan interview threw the timeline off a little bit, because Brennan sat with him for about 8 hours, and there could have been some new stuff to percolate out of that, especially since he just did an op-ed 3 days ago about how Donald Trump is going to use the intelligence community to mess with the election. So I mean, we still got some time. We've got tomorrow, which is when they like to drop these things. But I would say everybody just kind of take a breath. If by, like, you know, mid to late September we haven't heard anything more, I would start to say, okay, enough is enough already, guys. Let's get going.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, neighbor. That was fun. Good show, guys.
Right on cue.
We will be back on Tuesday with another fiery episode. Thanks for tuning in.
For hardworking Americans, Uncover DC with Tracy Beanz on WSMN, AM 1590 and FM 95.3.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN1590.com.
USA Radio News with Tim Berg.
President Trump released a memo threatening to cut federal funding to cities dealing with protests. The memo orders federal agencies to find areas where they could potentially cut funding that, quote, permit anarchy